This week in NASCAR has left its studios in Charlotte, North Carolina. We've gone up the highway to the North Carolina Auto Racing Hall of Fame Museum with a great crowd gathered on as we get set to get you ready for this weekend's NASCAR racing at the North Carolina Motor Speedway. Hi, welcome to the program. Glad that you've joined us. We're on the air to take you back through an exciting weekend of racing at California with the NASCAR Busch Series and the NASCAR Craftsman Truck Series held center stage over this past weekend and get you ready for the AC Delco 200 and AC Delco 400 this weekend's feature events at the North Carolina Motor Speedway as the chase for the championships in those two divisions continue. On the program tonight to kick all that around with us, the winner of the Kenwood 300 for the NASCAR Busch Series on Sunday in California, Todd Bodine, driver of the Stanley Pontiac, will join us. We'll talk with Todd about his victory on Sunday as well as his continued pursuit of Randy LaJoie for the NASCAR Busch Series championship. Then at the bottom of the hour, we'll preview the event at Rockingham with a five-time winner at that track. Rusty Wallace will be here, driver of the Miller Lite Ford for Penske Racing South. We'll kick Rockingham around with Rusty, as well as some of the ups and downs of his 1997 season. We start, as always, though, with a swing back through what happened on the racetrack over the past weekend. The events out in California being our focus. To do that, here's Tyler Potter.
While the Winston Cup circuit had the week off for the first time in 11 weeks, the Busch and Truck Series were busy basking in the sun at the new California Speedway in Fontana. It was a memorable weekend for Todd Bodine and Mike Bliss, as each posted their first wins of '97. In Sunday's Kenwood Home and Car Audio 300, Steve Park started from the pole for the first time all year. But it was Bobby Labonte who had the dominant car after he and Elliott Sadler got around Park on lap 38. Labonte would lead at lap 50 and lap 100 and was a major player in the outcome of this race. After the first round of green flag pit stops, Park found himself back in the lead, choosing not to pit with Labonte and Sadler. When he did come in, it was a disaster. 30 seconds to be exact after his tire changer lost a lug nut. Elliott Sadler's chances were all but dashed when he brushed the wall in turn 1 with less than 50 to go. The impact resulted in a broken front tie rod. It came down to fuel mileage. Labonte thought he had enough to go the distance. He was wrong. To make matters worse, Labonte ran out past the entrance to pit road, so he had to coast all the way back around again. Park wasn't going to take any chances, but when he came in for a splash, he surrendered the lead to Todd Bodine. Bodine rolled the dice, and it paid off, going the final 71 laps on a tank of fuel for his first victory of '97. He also picked up 46 points on leader Randy LaJoie in the battle for the championship.
It's a long shot, but, we're not going to give up by any means. We go out to win every race and do the best we can. And, unfortunately, Randy's team and Randy are so consistent that they're going to finish in the top 10. And that's what they got to do, is just finish. And, we got to do the best we can to try to stay in front of Steven. And, it's been a good year no matter what happens.
For the second straight race, Mike Bliss was on the pole in Saturday's No Fear Challenge 200. Quite a battle going on for second between these two guys, Kenny Irwin Jr. and Ernie Irvan. It was a sign of things to come. It was a tough afternoon for Rich Bickle, who was second in points coming in, but by lap 25 found himself a lap down. At the break, he was 2 down, and he never recovered, finishing 26th. As the second half began, Joe Ruttman fell back with transmission problems and was done for the day. It became apparent the race wasn't for first, but for second. With Bliss in command, Mike Wallace, Irvin, and Irwin battled behind him. After 3 runner-ups in '97, Bliss had finally won. Just how dominant was Bliss? Well, he wound up leading 93 of the 100 laps.
Well, the ASC Ford was handling perfect. I mean, it was flawless. Robert Yates built a hell of a motor, and that thing ran like a horse.
Now back to the Irvin-Irwin battle. With 3 to go, Irvin had gotten around Irwin. They battled tooth and nail in the final laps, touching several times. But in the end, it was Kenny holding off Ernie for third. Afterwards, Ernie had a few choice words for his successor.
I thought it was good, hard racing. Both of us were trying to go for the spot. I don't know, evidently he's upset about something.
So that's what happened on the racetrack out in California this past weekend. Now, while the NASCAR Winston Cup Series had the weekend off, they weren't sitting by idly doing nothing. Many of the teams busy testing at various racetracks around the country, particularly the Atlanta Motor Speedway. Some 30 teams have been through the racetrack that's been reconfigured since the last event there in early March of this season. Now a quad oval instead of the traditional oval that it had been, and speeds have been breathtaking. Kenny Irwin on Tuesday turning a lap of over 109 93 miles an hour on a 1.5-mile track. The old track record that Robbie Gordon set in qualifying just this past March was only 186 miles an hour. It's going to be fast in Atlanta when the Napa 500 rolls around. Also this week, we want to take a minute and tip the cap to Mike Stefanik, who has done a first in NASCAR racing history this past week. Mike claimed 2 NASCAR Touring Series championships in this 1997 season, wrapped them both up on the same weekend. This past Saturday, he won the NASCAR Busch North Championship in their final event of the season on the road course at Lime Rock Park in Connecticut. Then Sunday went to Thompson, Connecticut, and wrapped up the NASCAR Featherlight Modified Tour title as well. Both of those series are extremely competitive. For Mike to win both championships in one season is very much a tribute to his talent and dedication, as well as to that of both of his race teams. A very first in NASCAR racing history for Mike Stefanik, 2 NASCAR Touring Series titles here in 1997. Now let's check the Napa leaderboard and the NASCAR Winston Cup Championship standings. Heading into the race at Rockingham this weekend, 110 points between Jeff Gordon and Mark Martin with 3 races to go. Gordon won the spring race at Rockingham. Mark was the Busch pole winner for that event. We move to Dale Jarrett, 3rd in the championship standings, and point out he led the most laps in the spring at Rockingham and finished 2nd to Gordon in that event. Dale down by 155 points. Jeff Burton in 4th, 280 out of the top spot. He finished 3rd at Rockingham in the spring, his 3rd top 5 in the last 4 races there, despite the fact that he hasn't qualified better than 17th at that track in his Winston Cup career. 5th and 6th place drivers Terry Labonte and Dale Earnhardt are separated by 2 points. Terry, the winner of the most recent race a week ago Sunday at Talladega. Earnhardt hasn't finished worse than 11th in the last 5 years at Rockingham. He's won twice in that time. Bobby Labonte is 7th in the standings, closing in on his first win of the season after finishing 2nd in the last 2 races. Bill Elliott, the 8th place driver, has 3 Rockingham wins. He's 151 points behind Labonte and 214 ahead of the 9th place driver, which is Ted Musgrave. Ted was 16th in the standings this time a year ago, a good improvement for him. He's 80 points ahead of Rusty Wallace. Rusty has 3 top 10 finishes in the last 4 Rockingham races. He's going to need another one to stay in the top 10. Ken Schrader and Johnny Benson are only 2 and 7 points behind him, respectively. So that is the scene now as we get set to roll into Rockingham for the weekend of racing for both the NASCAR Busch Series and the NASCAR Winston Cup Series. We are going to take a break on This Week in NASCAR and come back here to the North Carolina Auto Racing Hall of Fame and visit with our first guest of the evening. He put a Stanley Pontiac in victory lane at California Sunday. Todd Bodine is with us when This Week in NASCAR returns.
This Week in NASCAR is brought to you by Royal Oak Charcoal, good times in every big red bag. Chevrolet, the cars more champions trust. Napa Auto Parts, at Napa we keep America running. And by Slim Jim, when you need a little excitement, snap into a beefy, spicy Slim Jim.
He won the first NASCAR Busch Series race at the California Speedway on Sunday afternoon, continuing his pursuit of the Series championship. Now joining me on This Week in NASCAR, driver of the Stanley Pontiac, Todd Bodine. Todd, thanks for coming by. How are you?
I'm doing great, Alan.
Congratulations on the win Sunday. How significant was that win to you? We were down to just a few races to go in the season. What did it mean?
It was real big. We got worried. We really did. Three races left and hadn't had a victory yet. And, it'd been a good season. We've been consistent, 2nd in points, 1st in points, 2nd in points. We've had a couple ups and downs, some real good races, some real bad races, but we still hadn't had that victory. And I really wanted to get the victory lane for Stanley, our sponsor, and Harnage Machine Tool, and the crew. I mean, these guys worked hard every week and kept us in this points battle. And to not have a victory to that point, we were getting worried. So to get it out of the way finally, it was a big relief.
Watching the Stanley Pontiac come down in the final moments of the race and take the checkered flag. Let's talk about the fact that you didn't qualify well and started 28th, but you were running what, like 13th in 17 laps. How'd you do that?
Yeah, it had a good car. For qualifying, we just missed it. The car was just too tight off the corner, and there for a Busch car that doesn't have a lot of horsepower, being too tight will really slow it down. And we just kept working on it, and we kept picking at it and got a little faster, and by the time the race started, we had a pretty good race car. And I think a lot of it, though, was inexperience in drafting for some of the guys, some of the younger guys that were starting back there. And I just got lucky a couple times and made the right move and picked my way through.
Speaking of luck, there were 2 cautions in those first 17 laps, and you were in the vicinity of a couple of them. We're going to look at one of them here when they tried to go 3 wide into turn 3, and your teammate Mike McLaughlin came out on the short end of it. Were you watching this in the mirror or out the windshield?
Well, actually, it was in the mirror. I just got by this pack, and this is really one of the only bad things we had during this race. The guys did a really good job. I mean, when you can go 4 wide into turn 1 there and come out without wrecking, you've done something. And I really, my hat's off to all the guys that ran there.
For as much inexperience in that kind of drafting as there was, you're right, guys, it was a very clean race. Ended up, you won the race on fuel mileage. You ran the first 69 laps before you stopped for fuel. Came in then, caution came out, you came back down pit road at lap 75. How come just again after the first stop?
Well, that particular time we changed the tires, went back out, and I had a vibration. I think just maybe one of the wheel weights came off or something like that. And going that fast there, you don't want to take a chance. So we just we weren't going to give up a lot of track position. We decided let's go ahead and change them again and top it off. And so that's the reason for that.
So the caution there ended up being a pretty big break for you just after your first stop, and the fuel worked out to the end. Were you worried about the fuel? I mean, you'd gone 69 laps. Now you were trying to go 71. Was it really a worry?
For me, no. I trusted Clyde's decision. They had calculated the fuel mileage, and he said we were getting really good mileage even before we decided to go for the gas mileage. And you know, we came back in at the end of that caution and topped it off.
Yeah.
And that was all we needed. And when I went back out pit road, Clyde said to start drafting, and we were going to try to go on fuel, and that's what we did.
And it worked out in victory lane. Todd Bodine with us, driver of the Stanley Pontiac for Team 34 Racing. Coming up, your calls and questions on the Napa Race Line. It's toll free from anywhere in the U.S., 1-800-266-9531. Give us a call. We'll take your calls and questions in just a little while. This week in NASCAR from the North Carolina Auto Racing Hall of Fame in Mooresville, North Carolina. We're coming back after a look at the NASCAR Winston Cup Championship standings for drivers outside the top 10. Back on This Week in NASCAR from the North Carolina Auto Racing Hall of Fame in Mooresville. Todd Bodine, our guest, winner of Sunday's Kenwood 300 for the NASCAR Busch Series. We'll take your calls and questions for Todd in just a little bit. Your win trimmed 46 points off Randy LaJoie's lead for the championship. You're down by 200 with 2 races to go. We saw a few minutes ago your comments after the race that it's going to be tough, but you haven't given up yet. How do you deal with needing 200 points in 2 races? I mean, you're just totally relying on him having some sort of problem?
We're going to have to. You know, it's almost impossible to make that up and they not have problems. So, unfortunately, like I said, Randy and his crew are just consistent. They're going to finish those races and they're going to be in the top 10 probably. So we have to go out and do the best we can. Hopefully we can win a couple more. I mean, that's what we're here for every week, is to win races.
You hit kind of a tough stretch in the late summer. 25th at Richmond, 15th at Dover, and 20th at Charlotte. That is as tough a string as you've had all season. Will you look back on that at the end of the year and say that's where it got away?
Yeah, exactly. And we have no reasons for it. I mean, just bad luck. You know, Charlotte, we just didn't have a car that handled it. I mean, we just missed the setup. Dover, we had one problem we know of with the car. It's just little things that keep you from running in the top 10. I mean, this division's tough. It's competition's right there, and you got to be on your toes every week. One of the ones that could have been a real bad day for you that just kind of, to me, was the remarkable story of Todd Summer was Bristol. Early part of the race, here you are caught up in a wreck, and you come, well, here it is right here, and you come back and you get an 8th place finish out of this. This could have been real bad. It could have been real bad. Bristol, you don't usually get out that lucky, but we had a good race car that night, and just fortunate to get back through the traffic without getting lapped or anything like that, or getting in another skirmish. So, you know, the Stanley Pontiac's been tough all year. We've had good cars, just had some bad luck to go with it.
You and Randy are rivals for the championship. You don't act like rivals, though, on or off the racetrack. How is it that you cannot become, when you've had for what, 3/4 of the season known that this was the guy and he's known that you were the guy? How have you been able to keep that from getting in the way?
Well, Randy and myself have been friends for a long time, back from Connecticut days. And when Randy moved down here, I was just getting started in Busch Grand National, and he actually did some spotting for me, put a body on a car for us, and actually did some work for us. We've been good friends for a long time, and that's what's really made this battle a lot of fun all year long, is parking next to each other each week and goofing back and forth. I mean, you know Randy, he's a cut up every week, and we've had a lot of fun, and it's made our friendship grow a lot.
One of the other things that's happened to you over the course of time since you visited with us last in June was you went to Watkins Glen and won the pole for the Winston Cup race there in a one-off shot that your NASCAR Busch Series team did. Tell me about that day. Was it as much a shock to you as it was to us?
Yeah, everybody gets a lucky lap once in a while, I guess. But no, we went up there and tested, and we ran really well testing. We thought we could go back, qualify in the top 10, but when we unloaded, when we got there, the car was just terrible. All over the place, wouldn't do what we wanted to do, and got ready for qualifying. We didn't know what to do, so we put it right back like we had it testing with one minor change and put some 4 Goodyears on there and went out, and I just wanted to get a good smooth lap. I knew if I could get a smooth lap, I could be in the top 25, and got the pole. I couldn't believe it.
You were in the top 25. Pretty good there, leading the top 25. Another thing that happened to you over the summer, early August, you announced your NASCAR Winston Cup team for next year. Who are some of the players in that team? All people really know about it is the sponsor and Todd Bodine, and they don't really know much else about it.
Well, that's a group out of Indianapolis. They've owned an IRL car for a couple years. It's ISM Racing, headed up by Bob Hancher, and he's the brains behind the racing part. He's really come into this with a different view, a different way of looking at things, a different way of running the team, and that was what really intrigued me about it to start with, is the ideas that he had for the team. And then when they told me the sponsor was Tabasco brand pepper sauce, Tabasco is #1 in their sauce, and around the world they're #1. So it was a great sponsor, a great opportunity for me, and I'm just happy to be a part of it.
Todd Bodine is with us. He is the driver of the Stanley Pontiac in 1997 on the NASCAR Busch Series, trying to win himself a championship over these last couple of races. We'll come back and take your calls in a couple of minutes. We're at the North Carolina Auto Racing Hall of Fame and Museum in Mooresville. On the way to the break, let's look at those Busch Series championship standings. We told you that Todd trails Randy LaJoie by 200 points with 2 races to go. You are looking at Bobby Allison winning the 1988 Daytona 500 this coming January. Bobby Allison will be inducted to the North Carolina Auto Racing Hall of Fame. The second inductee, Richard Petty, was the first in 1997. We are back inside that very museum. Hey, they still got the sticks of gum on the dashboard of Fred Lorenzen's car. That's one of the things you can see here. You can also see This Week in NASCAR here tonight as we visit with Todd Bodine, driver of the Stanley Pontiac. He goes after another win in this Saturday's AC Delco 200 at Rockingham. You mentioned your NASCAR Winston Cup team. You flew straight from California on the red-eye flight to Atlanta and tested with them this week. And I said at the top of the show, Atlanta's all anybody in Winston Cup racing's been talking about and how fast it is. How'd you find it?
Fast. It's real fast. It's so fast that it's almost like driving a short track.
Really?
You go through the corner so quickly, down the back straightaway, through the next corner. I mean, it's 29 seconds is a decent lap. I mean, 28.70 or something, 63 I think was the fastest. But a 29-second lap around 1.5 miles, that's fast, and it's super smooth. A lot of grip. I tell you, it's going to be a heck of a race.
You already ran one race with that new team, the Charlotte race. You started what? You started 36th, you finished 26th. Was that a successful weekend?
Believe it or not, yeah, it was for us. We set out, first of all, 10 weeks before that race, we didn't have a race team. So to show up at the racetrack was a great accomplishment in itself. And we showed up, we had the race car perfect, all the toolboxes, everything decaled, everything was right. We showed up as a professional race team, which was hard to do in 10 weeks. That's a lot of work. So I give the crew a lot of credit for that. Then we made the race. It wasn't the best qualifying lap. We didn't pick up what we thought we should have. We should have probably been about 18th. And then we finished the race with no scratches on the car. So we accomplished an awful lot in a short period of time, and we're very proud of that accomplishment. hopefully now we can go to Atlanta and improve on it some.
You've been Mr. Substitute for 1997. While you've been trying to win this NASCAR Busch Series championship, you have been called upon several times to fill in for people in NASCAR Winston Cup rides, for Ricky Craven at Texas, for your brother Jeff at Charlotte in May, for Jeff Burton here in New Hampshire in September. How do you jump into somebody else's car and try and go?
It's pretty tough, actually. You know, unfortunately though for myself, everybody that I've had to deal with and the crew chiefs and the crews have been very supportive and very helpful when I do these jobs, and that makes it a lot easier. And then when you get a guy like Buddy Parrott as a crew chief, you know, Buddy's a great guy, and he makes you feel right at home, and they want to do the best they can, so they're helping you. I mean, it was a good situation. You know, one thing I feel very fortunate about is even last year getting to do all those substitutions is I got to work with a lot of different crew chiefs, a lot of very good crew chiefs, and that taught me an awful lot about racing and a different outlook about it, so I was very fortunate.
Tell me about your race team now as they get ready to go to Rockingham. Okay, Sunday night at 7 o'clock Eastern time, you were in Victory Lane at California, just taking the trophy, basically. Now tomorrow, noon on Thursday Eastern time, they have to be signed in to Rockingham in eastern North Carolina, having brought a tractor trailer back from California to Charlotte and probably stopped at the shop, I would assume. How'd they do that?
Yeah, well, it's pretty tough on the crews to do that, but fortunately for us, we've had a race car ready now for a couple of weeks for Rockingham, and the crews have been working hard on all the other cars to get them ready. So they got way ahead, and made it a lot easier. It was tough on the truck drivers. We had 2 truck drivers to come back. They came back nonstop and got here yesterday morning, and you know, so they're ready to go.
Takes a lot of dedication to be in racing, any job. Todd Bodine with us, driver of the Stanley Pontiac. When we come back, your calls and questions on the Napa Race Line at 1-800-266-9531. We'll talk with you in just a couple of minutes. Now, on the way to the break, we saw earlier Mike Bliss won the NASCAR Craftsman Truck Series race out at California on Saturday. Here are the championship standings after that event. Jack Sprague opening up his lead from 56 to 121 points on Rich Bickle with 2 races to go. They're at Phoenix a week from Saturday. We're back on This Week in NASCAR at the North Carolina Auto Racing Hall of Fame in Mooresville with Todd Bodine, driver of the Stanley Pontiac. And now your calls and questions on the Napa Race Line at 1-800-266-9531. We open it up in New England, Pawtucket, Rhode Island. Mickey, you're on with Todd Bodine. Hello.
Hello there. Hello, Alan, and I'd like to say congratulations to your neighbor there, Mike Stefanik, that you mentioned.
Yeah, Mike did a great job.
Yes, he did. Also, Todd, congratulations on your wins and your title this year.
Thank you.
Also, Todd, I have an old Pinto of Richie Evans that your father-in-law used to work on back in the early days there. And how does it feel to be working against a 9-time championship crew chief like Billy Nicewitz that you're fighting for this title? Does that bring back some memories or what?
Need to explain there that Billy was Richie Evans' crew chief, the many-time NASCAR modified champion. He now works for the base team that Randy LaJoie drives for.
Yeah, I tell you, that's I mentioned earlier about being friends with Randy.
Yeah.
It's pretty neat because Billy has been friends with Clyde forever. Birdie's been friends with. It's one big group that's grew up together in racing in New England, New York State, and we all came down here and started racing. So that part of it's been a lot of fun too. And yeah, Billy's awful good. You know, 9 times with Richie and. Last year with Randy and probably this year with Randy, unfortunately. But it's been a lot of fun having him around every week.
Let's go back to the phones. Claremont, North Carolina. Alan, you're on This Week in NASCAR. Hi there.
Hi. Hi, Todd. Welcome back to Winston Cup. We missed you.
Well, thank you. I appreciate it.
My question, two questions, actually. With a number of new tracks getting dates and more tracks being built, in addition to teams expanding and teams beginning, Winston Cup's growing. Do you think the circuit will be divided into divisions to accommodate these changes or something of that sort?
Tough question.
Very tough question. You know, something has to be done. I don't know what the answer is. I'm sure Mike Helton and everybody down at Daytona is trying to figure something out because we do have an awful lot of teams and there's not enough room for everybody every week, and that's unfortunate because we got a lot of great sponsors, a lot of great teams, and I don't know what the answer is, but I'm sure that NASCAR will figure it out.
One of the tricks to it is that there is no shortage of people, as grueling and demanding as the schedule is getting. There's no shortage of people starting new teams and wanting to be part of this. So it's kind of a tricky thing to balance. Back to the phones we go. San Antonio, Texas. Richard, you're on This Week in NASCAR with Todd Bodine. Hello.
Hello. Well, nice to see you coming back, racing Winston Cup also.
Thank you.
Just had a quick question. I'm watching the races, and I always hear, and there comes Todd and all them doing a drag race. I was just wondering, how fast is a Busch car, like from a dead stop for a quarter mile?
He's picking on us announcers.
Yeah.
That's no fair.
That's a good question.
Any idea?
No, I couldn't even answer that. I'm sure it depends on the gear ratio and the horsepower you got and all that kind of stuff, but I'd have to bet that it's not very slow.
No, I wouldn't think so either. Of course, in the days before the pit road speed limit, we could find out how fast they could go in a quarter mile. Todd, congratulations on a great win for you on Sunday, on a great season. And even if it doesn't come out that you're able to catch Randy, you have been right with it all year in the thick of the championship chase, and you're to be commended on that.
Well, I appreciate it. It has been a good year. You know, second in points is not bad. It's nothing to sneeze at. Now we got to win, and I'm going to be a daddy pretty soon, so
yeah, let's get that in.
We're pretty happy about that, and everything's going good. I got a new job for next year, and things are looking up.
There you go. Thanks again, Todd. Appreciate it. Todd Bodine, driver of the Stanley Pontiac, with us on This Week in NASCAR. Going to take a break, come back, and welcome our second guest of the evening to help us preview the events at Rockingham this coming weekend. Rusty Wallace, a 5-time Rockingham winner, driver of the Miller Lite Ford, is with us when This Week in NASCAR continues. On the way to the break, we salute NASCAR Touring Series winners this past weekend, including Ted Christopher won the Busch North Series season finale at Lime Rock Park on Saturday, and Freddie Query won a very exciting Slim Jim All-Pro Series All-American 400 at Nashville on Sunday. On the schedule this weekend, you're looking at it. Rockingham, the Busch Series Saturday, the Winston Cup Series on Sunday. That's what's happening in NASCAR racing this weekend. He's a 5-time winner at Rockingham and enters Sunday's race there, trying to put a lock on a top 10 finish in points for 1997. Now joining us, driver of the Miller Lite Ford, Rusty Wallace. Hi, Rusty. How are you?
Great. How you doing?
Doing great. Thanks for being here tonight. Let's talk about a couple things. First of all, we just had Todd Bodine up here, the winner of Sunday's race. You were in a Busch Series race on Sunday. It's been years since you did that.
It's been a long time, yeah. I was talking to Roger Penske, my car owner, I guess a couple weeks ago, and he said, hey, you doing anything this weekend? I said, well, it's kind of my vacation.
Yeah.
He said, how about running California? And I said, well, never thought about it. I said, where are we going to get a car at? He said, let's call Mark Martin and Jack Rouse. So we borrowed one from those guys, took it out there, they crewed it, they did a great job, we had a fun time, learned a lot, and finished 21st in the race, but early in the race,
yeah.
We pitted on lap 60. They had a caution flag come out, and we got caught in the pits and lost a lap. So it was a fun day, though.
Just the way the yellow fell.
It's the way the yellow
Talladega,
fell, yeah.
the last NASCAR Winston Cup race, a top 10 run for you.
Yep.
A good day, not a good day?
No, it's been a pretty good day. I thought we could have run better than that. This year's probably been our best effort for super speedway stuff. The worst qualifying effort we had all year long was a 9th there.
Mm-hmm.
And the car's been really running strong. The engines have been really excellent, and I think that's been a big turning point.
Watching Rusty here lead that group eventually up to the front group that we saw just ahead of them there, and it was a good day at Talladega. That finish moves you from 13th to 10th in the championship standings. Barely into 10th. You've got just a little gap between you and all the way back to like 15th place. Does it matter to you if you're not taking the big trophy home, where you finish?
Well, I think it does. If you don't take the big trophy home, I think anything after 10th kind of sounds bad. To me, it does, at least. Maybe to a lot of other people, to me, it sounds bad. And but we've had a great car all year long. But we had some engine problems early. I had the wreck at the last lap at Loudon that killed me. I had the deal at Martinsville where I thought I had to race one and lost a lap there. Ended up finishing 15th, lost a lot of points. If it wouldn't have been for that, we've been way up in the points. But hey, you know, if you can't win a championship, that's the main thing you're concerned about.
1997 hasn't been the season you were expecting, and you have focused a lot of time on, this is Indianapolis here, that was one of the days that wasn't as good as you wanted. You focused a lot of time on the engine room because at the beginning of the season you had some problems there. You leased some motors from somebody else for a while to try and help the engine room get back on its feet. Why?
Well, we're competitors. We got sponsors that are looking for performance, and we got, you know, I come to drive the car to win, and Don Miller, our general manager, he wants the car to win, and all the team members want to win. And the engine guys, we knew we got the talent, but for some reason we were just having problems. And so we were having problems with horsepower to start with, and we leased some engines from Larry Wallace. And what that did, that gave our guys enough time to go back and go to work and start trying to fix these problems. And the problems seem to be gone right now. The engines are running great. I can get out of the car every time right now and say, if I didn't win, I can say it's not because of the engine. Durability's been good, and I wish we could push the reset button right now and start over, because the engine's deal is great right now.
Without question, the highlight of the season was the win at Richmond, came in the 3rd race of the year. Tell me about that race. It was a fairly heavy ending. There's a lot going on.
Yeah, it was a real weird ending, because we led the race throughout the day, and I think we led the most laps, won the race. And I had to go to appearance down in New Orleans for Miller Brewing Company. So I've won the race, you know, left with a Miller in my hand and flew down there and got there for the appearance. They called me up and said, hey, you know, the wind's being protested. They said the compression ratio's too high, and I thought, man, there's no way. I watched them check it. And come to find out, the next day after a pre-race inspection, they took the engine out of the car and took it back to North Carolina and checked it again and found out it was legal.
That was, though, a dominating performance. That was, without question, the strongest performance you've had all season. Do I overstate that?
Well, I don't know. We've had a lot of good performances all year long. I mean, the Richmond was a good one. I think the road courses were really good out at Sears Point. I blew the engine up out there, missed a gear. And I think the Martinsville run a couple weeks ago was pretty dominant. You know, I think we led almost 260 laps out of that deal. But it has been a real up and down year. It hasn't been as dominant as I've been in the past. Yeah. But it's, you know, we're going to try to fix that problem.
Disappointment of the year. We'll set Martinsville aside. We know that was disappointing. How about Bristol in April? When I was sitting here coming up with that, I thought that was the one. Well,
yeah, that's whenever you lose a race in the last lap like that, like Bristol, because that was a pretty dominant run too. Led a lot of laps that day. But you know, I came up in a lap car and he got too close to me. Yeah. And he did what I would have done probably. And he just rooted me a little bit there, got me sideways, and won the race. But that wasn't the down part of the year to me. The down part of the year to me was a race I'll never forget, and that was the Brickyard 400. We tested so good up there, and he got there and blew the qualifying motor up, then blew the race motor up, and qualified terrible, had to take a provisional to get in the race, and just anything that could go wrong went wrong. And that's a race where the year before, the worst I've run ahead all year at that race ever since it started was, I think it was like a 7th or something. The year before, about won the race, led the most laps there, and that's when I got trapped in the pitch, and Earnhardt won. I finished 2nd. And then it goes to this horrible nightmare, you know. So things, sometimes when you get down like that and you have the problems, it makes you rebound so it won't happen again.
And things have been strong of late and continuing to get stronger. For Rusty Wallace, our guest tonight, driver of the Miller Lite Ford. We'll come back and take your calls and questions in a little while for Rusty on the Napa Race Line at 1-800-266-9531. No, we're not in our studio. We're at the North Carolina Auto Racing Hall of Fame tonight in Mooresville, North Carolina. This is right across the street from the Penske Racing South Shops. And we're coming back in just a minute on This Week in NASCAR.
This Week in NASCAR is brought to you in part by Berryman Products, makers of the complete line of B12 Chem Tool cleaners and fuel conditioners for your car. And by Royal Oak Charcoal, good times in every big red bag.
Back on This Week in NASCAR with Rusty Wallace, driver of the Miller Lite Ford, getting you ready for this weekend's events at Rockingham, where he's a 5-time winner. We'll talk about that in a little while. First, I want to talk about 1998 for a bit. You and your team have been pretty heavily involved in developing the Taurus, and that's been a big topic of conversation, not only among racers, but race fans want to know something about the car. When did that process start, that your team got involved in trying to help Ford get that thing together?
I don't know the exact date, but I would say probably around 6 months ago it started. They got a hold of the race team. Don Miller and the Ford Motor Company started talking, and they basically contracted our team to be the manufacturer for the Ford Taurus, to take the car and take it from a street car to what it is right now, and get the thing all approved. And we did all that and announced it up in, I believe it was Indianapolis.
Right.
Got all that finished, and now it's pretty well up to the rest of the teams right now. It's out there, and I guess a lot of teams are building them, and I think the car's going to be a really good car.
What's left to be determined on the race car? Are there things or areas of the car that still haven't been completely worked out yet, or is it just down to small details?
Well, it's down to a lot of wind tunnel at a time, a lot of just, these guys are building their first Tauruses, and usually the first car they built isn't the best car. And we built one car, didn't like what we saw at Daytona, took it to Charlotte, didn't like what we saw there. Now they built a brand new thoroughbred super speedway car, and they're in the wind tunnel today, running that. They're in Georgia today, running it right now. And I guess it's going pretty good down there from what I hear. Then there's other teams building short track cars and intermediate cars, and the Yates teams and Bill Elliott, guys like that. And I think they're liking what they're seeing right now. The reports we've heard today or that they were real happy with what they saw so far. But now you got to go back and build a speedway version and an intermediate version, which is 2 different cars. And so all the teams now have got the templates and they've got their pieces and parts, and they're using their wisdom and trying to build the best car they possibly can.
Roger Penske and the Penske South group decided not to go the multi-car route for next year. You were debating it back earlier in the season, decided against it. How come?
The engine problem, that was probably the one thing. We felt as though we were having so many problems in the mid part of the year that if we can't get our own house in order, how are we going to do 2 cars? And that was one of the big reasons that spoiled it. And because we were pretty well set to do 2 cars. And I'm not saying we won't do that. I'm positive we will do that because that's the way of the future. But that's the reason we had to scrub it for 98. But now, if we would have known back then what we know now, we'd have probably done it because the engine rooms took a big turn.
Yeah.
It's great right now.
There's been a lot of talk of an alliance maybe between your team and another one to try and share some testing information. Is that just rumor, or is that maybe a possibility that could happen?
No, it's a good possibility. It probably will happen. And we'll talk about that later on in the year right now. They'll probably have a little announcement 1st of November about that one. But yeah, I think if you can't have a 2-car team, you definitely got to get hooked up with somebody and do some testing and share, because if you don't, you're just going to get lost out there.
Rusty Wallace is with us, driver of the Miller Lite Ford for Penske Racing South. We're going to take a break, come back, and open up the Napa race line. Toll free at 1-800-266-9531. We'll hope to hear from you. It's This Week in NASCAR from the North Carolina Auto Racing Hall of Fame in Mooresville, just across the street from the Penske Racing South shops, and we'll be right back in just a minute.
Guests on This Week in NASCAR receive embroidered Chase Authentic attire. Chase Authentics, the choice of champions, the authentic trackside apparel of NASCAR. Enter to win the Chase Authentics Fan Fantasy Sweepstakes. Win a trip for 2 to one of NASCAR's biggest races of 1998. Entry forms and complete rules in the men's department of participating Sears stores.
We've got everything here at the Hall of Fame. Simulators, lots of classic cars. I jumped in that thing earlier today. I think I was the first guy that's ever crashed it. Don't know. North Carolina Auto Racing Hall of Fame, just off exit 36, Interstate 77 in Mooresville, North Carolina, the same industrial park that many of the team shops are in. And they have many things going on throughout the year for you to participate in. If you happen to be in this area, come on by. One of them, the 8th annual Stocks for Tots program. That's something that's very near and dear to the Penske Racing team. That happens on December the 18th here at this industrial park. There you see the dates and times and all the necessary information. Also coming up, there's going to be an auction for the benefit of the Iredell County Special Olympics here on November the 8th. And we thank the folks at the Hall of Fame for hosting This Week in NASCAR tonight. There we are. Rusty Wallace is with us, driver of the Miller Lite Ford for Penske Racing South. Jessica, Graham, North Carolina, you are up first on the Napa race line. Hello, go ahead.
Hi, Rusty.
Hello, how you doing?
Good. Good luck at Rockingham this weekend.
Thank you.
Okay, I have one question.
All right.
Do you think Chevy will have more of an advantage than Ford's when they get the new ST2 motor?
That's a pretty good question. She's up on her tech stuff, isn't she?
Knows the
I don't know.
rules.
I know the Chevrolet's getting a new engine next year, and they're not getting a new engine just because they want one. It's definitely got more power.
Yeah.
I hear 15, 20 horsepower. Who knows? We don't have one. But if they already got a car that's running pretty quick this year, it should make them go faster next year. Hopefully we can get our Taurus running good and make up the difference.
The endless pursuit, Ford, Chevrolet, Pontiac, no, it never stops, never will. Tell me about the process of trying to sort out this new car over the next few months. How much time are you going to get to spend on the track with it?
Well, not a whole lot of time. I mean, I think NASCAR might give us some time on the racetrack that doesn't go against our test schedule. But pretty soon, I mean, we're going to be right at Daytona. But these guys, you got to remember, we're all sitting there with Thunderbirds right now and not much time to build a bunch of Tauruses. So right now, the guys are trying to get down pat what they want to build. You know, if they get out of the wind tunnel, the car looks real good in the wind tunnel, then they feel pretty confident, then they can start building a car. Because one thing we do know, we took a car to Daytona and ran it, and we didn't like what we saw as far as numbers in the wind tunnel. And now those numbers have been greatly improved and tuned up a little bit to be closer to what the Thunderbird was. And obviously, you want to make it as good as that car because that's a pretty good car. And the reason we're not running that car right now is because Ford quit making it.
Yeah.
So the Thunderbird was a good car. So If you can get it as good as what the Thunderbird was, you really got something, but we like to have something better. So now they're trying to figure out how they want to build them, how they want to design them, and all the stuff, and it's a tough deal. And a lot of the teams are in the middle of that right now.
Let's go back to the phones. Cowpen, South Carolina. Bill, you're on This Week in NASCAR. Hello.
How you doing?
Great, thank you. Your question?
Rusty, good luck to you this year and next year.
Thank you, appreciate it.
What are your changes and plans for the 98 season, and what do you think of the race schedule for next year?
Well, the race schedule for next year is probably pretty close this year, just for the exception of the Las Vegas race. But I think that, definitely everybody's going to have to be more focused. I mean, that's the deal right now. Organization is the most important thing. The race teams have really got to flow. Got to be real aggressive on our chassis program, real aggressive on our engine program. Pit stops are one of the most important things right now. So you just can't put an importance on any one little thing. You got to put an importance on everything. Teamwork's real important. We keep telling our people there's no I in our race team, and there's not. It takes the crew chief, myself, the engine people, the general manager. Everything's got to go right, and the competition keeps getting tougher and tougher, so it's going to be a tough one.
Get at more people for next year?
I don't think we're going to add any more people. I think we got plenty enough people. There's no doubt about that. We just got to make sure that everybody's pulling in one direction. That's for the victory.
Let's go up to the Empire State, Corinth, New York. Lee, you're on This Week in NASCAR. Hello.
Hi, Alan.
Hello.
Hi, Rusty.
Hi, how you doing?
I'm doing fine. Got a couple quick questions.
Okay.
First of all, I love the penny deal. Now, are you still superstitious over the pennies?
Well, I've got little weird quirks about pennies, you know. when they pop up tails up at the wrong places, that concerns me a little bit because I can kind of trace bad luck to that, you know.
Yeah.
But just about the time, you know, I win a race or something goes good or something goes bad, I prove myself wrong about my thought about pennies. So,
superstitions.
Yeah, superstitions. You need to forget about that, don't we? You spend more time thinking that junk than you do anything else.
There you go. Rusty Wallace with us, driver of the Miller Lite Ford. We're going to come back and talk about this weekend's Rockingham race in just a minute. Rockingham, a place where Neil Bonnet visited Victory Lane in 1986.
We hadn't won that many races with Junior, and this has been a good racetrack for me. We came in here and really worked hard during the week. My guys have been working awful hard, and you know, I'm sitting here and take this win myself, but my goodness, I'm just glad for my team and Junior Johnson's bunch to win a race before I did leave at the end of the season.
We're constantly jacking the car around, changing the wedge. We used a lot of tires looking for the right combination and experimented a lot early in the race. Never really got that far behind, but just a lot of trial and error. Run high, run low, try a different stagger, try a different wedge. Finally got it all together right at the end, just in the nick of time.
A memory of a past Rockingham race. Here's another one. 1994, our guest Rusty Wallace in Victory Lane at the North Carolina Motor Speedway. One of 5 times he has claimed the winner's trophy at that mile racetrack, and that's where the NASCAR Winston Cup circuit heads this weekend. And pick your brain a little bit about Rockingham. Is there a pattern to a Rockingham race? Do they unfold in similar manner a lot?
They seem like they do. Early on, there's a bunch of passing, a bunch of this and that going on, but pit stops and track position is real important at Rockingham. I think that nowadays in Winston Cup racing, the teams are so close that track position and pit stop is real important. But shock absorbers are probably one of the key things at Rockingham that I've noticed. I mean, when we won all this race at Rockingham, we really had some stuff going on there. And I believe we still got that going on. But nowadays, handling, engines, pit stops. If I used to be able to answer that question, you just asked me and say, oh yeah, the key to today's race was the pit stop. That was everything. Or, oh, boy, that car really handled it good today. But man, if you don't have it all now, you know, it's tough.
You almost have to have a perfect race anymore to win. The theory on Rockingham over the years has been tires. New tires were great. Older tires or tires that had 15, 20 laps on them were not as great. Then the track was repaved. Now we've had a few years since that repaving job. Is it getting back like the old Rockingham was?
I'd say so. I think it's getting pretty close to what the old track used to be, and so some of those old thought processes are going to have to go right back to what you used to do. When they paved the place, it was real fast, had a lot of grip, and now the grip's gone away. And some of the roughness is coming back, and some of the old characteristics are coming off of turn 4 and the big bump and the car jumping up and down, coming off that turn or back. But it's a great track. I love going down there. Some neat people down there, and it's close to home. And I've won a lot of races down there. And the ones I haven't won, I've got a ton of second place finishes. So it's pretty cool. I like it a lot.
Rusty, thanks for spending time with us tonight. Good luck on Sunday. We've been sitting here in front of one of your old cars, and we're almost out of time. I couldn't let it go without mentioning it anyway. This was the first one. Thanks again for being here. I
Thanks a lot. Appreciate it.
Rusty Wallace, driver of the Miller Lite Ford for Penske Racing South in the AC Delco 400 on Sunday at Rockingham. Got to thank the North Carolina Auto Racing Hall of Fame for swinging the doors open and hosting the program tonight. We certainly appreciate all of their accommodation. Also got to thank the folks at the Checkered Flag Restaurant from across the street here at the Hall of Fame. Dinner was great, guys. Thank you very much. We will be back in our Charlotte studios next week on This Week in NASCAR. We'll talk all about Rockingham. Get you ready for the Phoenix race. 8 p.m. Eastern times when we do the show. Check your local listings for when you will see it in your area. And with that, we thank Todd Bodine for joining us tonight. We thank Rusty Wallace for joining us. We thank our studio audience for joining us. Who did I leave out? You for watching. Alan Bestwick for our This Week in NASCAR crew. We'll see you next week. So long.
This Week in NASCAR has been brought to you by Royal Oak Charcoal. Good times in every big red bag. Chevrolet, the cars more champions trust. Napa Auto Parts. At Napa, we keep America running. And by Slim Jim. When you need a little excitement, snap into a beefy, spicy Slim Jim.